Hello everyone and welcome. So I thought about creating a new series here on the channel and maybe also on Patreon on creating an environment from start to finish. So this is what I got so far, and I think today we can start to work on the height field, then move into the bridge and do the vegetation next. We will also do the plants in Houdini and everything else. So yeah, let's get into it. So I just saved a new scene and we will start by dropping a geocontainer. So as I was saying, today we'll focus on the height field. So let's create an height field, and by default this will be too big. So on the z-axis I'm gonna set it to 700. And now I want to displace it more along the back of the height field. So for that I need to create a mask. You can try using the height field pattern, which has a ramp preset, but I find it hard to control, and as a learning purpose, let's also use the height field VOP, which will be more simple in my opinion to set up. So let me check in here. Yeah, we just need to create a bind export, and we will export it to the mask, which is our second height field, or second volume I should say. And if we do, let's say, a constant of 1 and we export it, we will have a mask all over the place. But we don't want this, so let's get rid of this. And let's do a vector to float from our position. And we can take the z-axis and output it to the mask. But as you can see, that won't give us that gradient because we need to fit this mask. Right now is between minus 350 and 350 because it's half of the Z size. So let's copy this parameter and let's do a fit range, and we will do in here base relative references and divide this by 2 and do the same in here and divide by 2 and make this one negative. So, and now we have the math. Yeah, we also need to complement it because, oops, complement. So it's just 1 minus x, 1 minus the mask. So we can invert it because I want it bigger on the backside. And what else can we do? So I guess we can just do the heightfield remap and see how that goes. Heightfield remap, and we will use this mask. And let's compute the range, and it will be 0, 0, 0. And in this case, let's in the output max, let's introduce a big value, so 200. And as you can see, we have this linear fall off, and I don't want that. I want a more organic one. So for that, in the height field VOP, I'm gonna create a ramp. So let's go to create a ramp parameter, and we want a spline ramp. And let's go outside. Let's set it to linear because it was all flat. And I believe in here I used the interpolation to B-spline and started to play in here. It won't be exactly the same, but it will be similar enough. So let me check how that looks. And yeah, I guess this is fine. Maybe drag it a bit more. Something along those lines. And with the noises and everything, this will be much different from this linear look or this smoothed look. So let's create here a point, and I also want to save this mask, so I'm gonna use a copy layer, heightfield copy layer, and this is simple. We just set the source to mask, and I believe I call it mask Z. Yeah, mask Z. We'll just output to this to a new layer so we can refer back later. So now we want to create a mask also around we want to create a mask in the middle of this height field so it doesn't displace the edges. This is optional, but I'm gonna do it anyway, so I'm gonna create a bound and also create a mask from object, mask from geometry, heightfield mask from geometry. And I'm gonna connect this, and this will create the mask like that. And now I just want to work on this bound. So what have I done? I have a preset in here that just copies this value to all the other values around Z and positive X. And what this does is just decreases the size of the bound and creates this effect. So you just copy this parameter and paste on positive X and negative and positive Z. So that's the effect. And now I'm gonna blur this quite a bit. So something along those lines. And the first idea that I have in mind is to create some displacement near the ground. So some overall noise in the height field. And for that, I'm gonna use the Worldly Cellular F2F1 noise. So I'm gonna create a heightfield noise. And then we're going to distort it. So I'm gonna connect the mask. This way we don't affect those areas. So that's a nice trick. And I'm gonna follow some values so I can have a similar result, but basically I'm gonna change this to F2, F1 and not center the noise. And what else can we do? We can lower quite a bit the amplitude, so to 15, and we barely see it. And now we can increase this or decrease this element size. So we get this sort of result, and now we want to distort it. And this distort will have a big impact, so don't get too attached to this look. It's always like that in night fields. So we can do a night field distort by noise, and I'm gonna change the element size to 1000, and now we can start to distort it. And I'm gonna distort it by about 400. And I'm also going to load in the mask. And I'm gonna change the offset to a value I have to 600. So something along those lines, and also decrease the roughness. You can decrease the roughness and it won't have such a big effect. In this case, I'm gonna keep it like this. So as you can see, we start to have some ground displacement and also some elevation in here. You can play with the look. This is the look I found worked well for me. So what else can we do? Now we will create some hills on the back part of the design field. So for that, I'm gonna load the mask along the Z, so copy layer, Heightfield copy layer. And I'm gonna load from the mask Z to the mask. So this way we can work with this layer. And now do an Heightfield noise again. And we can use this mask. And instead of me playing around with values back and forth, I'm just gonna copy some values. So this is basically the intensity of the noise. I'm gonna set it to 217. And I also have the same element size, strangely, oddly enough. And I have an offset of 200. So you can play with the offset to get your desired look. And I also decrease the roughness a bit. So something along those lines. That seems to be similar to my setup. Now, I'm gonna do a night field resample to have a bit more resolution. So in this case, night field resample. And I'm gonna set it to 3. And this should give us a bit more resolution to work with. As you can see, the voxels here increased quite a bit, from 500,000 to 4 million. And now we can do a distort, heightfield distort by noise. And let's see, we can distort this back part. So I'm gonna just distort the yields on the back. I will have quite a bit of distortion, but increase the element size to something like 600, and also decrease the roughness. That's the trick also. Decreasing the roughness will always give you a more pleasing result. And in here, as the mask, I'm gonna use let me see. As the mask, I think I'm gonna use this one in here. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, I'm gonna use this one because I also want to distort everything. Let me check. No, sorry, I'm gonna distort this one in here. I'm seeing in here. So I'm also going to play with the offset in here. So about 600. I'm not sure why I'm getting this in here. Maybe the mask. Let's see. Yeah, this resample has something in here. But I didn't change anything particularly. So when I'm doing the resample, I'm also getting this problem on the back, and this didn't happen on my initial scene, so I'm not sure where is that coming from. Let me see in my mask. Everything is working. Which values did I use in here? Let me see. So about right. So I guess we'll just ignore this and move on to a new distort, and maybe that will go away. And in this distort, I'm gonna copy from here the mask. So I want this middle mask. So in this case, this distort won't help to fix that particular issue on the back. But let's see. So on this new distort, I'm gonna just set it to, you know what? We can just create a default one and connect this in here. Let's see. Yeah, that just helps us. Just the default settings, just to have some distortion on the height field. So now we're going to move on creating the small lake we have on the middle. So for that, I'm gonna create a box. And right away, I'm gonna change the uniform scale to 80. And we can Control Shift and click in here. And let me see which sort of values I use. Maybe a bit less on here. So I'm holding Shift and using the handles. So, and then I'm gonna scale it also in here, holding Shift. And also on the Y. Is this too much? Let me see. So I guess this is fine. And now I'm gonna do a bend to do some tapering. So I'm not gonna bend, I'm gonna do a tapering, and let's increase it and change, keep pressing B. And I guess this is the correct way. I'm just going to the capture length and change this to positive and this to -1. So just to invert. And I also can remove the X component, or I mean remove the Y component, because I don't want to display in this case, remove the X component because I don't want to displace it on the Y. So let's increase the tapering to 6, so quite a bit. And now we can do a mask from geometry, mask from geometry, mask by object, sorry. And do this, and remove the visualization, and we have this sort of result. So what else can we do? We can distort this path. So let's create a night field, distort by noise. And we will distort in this case we don't need to plug the mask, we will distort the mask instead. And I'm gonna change the amplitude to 30, the element size to about 100, and the roughness I can leave it at 2.3, something like that, so it doesn't. And I'm gonna also change the offset, so something along those lines. But as you can see, when we distort we lose the connection to the endpoints, so we can actually do a simple trick. So in a night field VOP, so let's create that, and we can, let's see, heightfield sample, sorry, volume sample, and we will sample this position and this input, and we can say primitive name, and we will sample the mask, the current mask, and let's bind export to the mask, and we should get the same result. Yeah. And now we can do a transform matrix, so this X form, and we can scale it along the Z, as you can see. And now we don't have that problem anymore. This is not strictly necessary, but just as a nice touch. And I believe that's what I've done in there. But let's do first the heightfield remap, and we will worry about the next issue next. So let's do a heightfield mask blur, and I'm gonna blur this by about 80, so quite a bit, and do a heightfield remap. So I just want to move this to the ground to make it flat. So I'm gonna plug the mask, and I'm gonna compute range, and we can climb to minimum and climb to maximum, and copy this parameter to this one, and we will just set it to -15, so something along those lines. But I don't want this small lake to end abruptly, so I'm gonna leave some displacement there on the back, so I can then distort the lake and still have some lines to finish the path or the lake, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna go in this swap and load, so bind the mask that, and then we can just fit range just as a quick fix. Let's do a multiply. Let's see what that gives us. So as you can see, is the other way around, so let's complement. And now we have some displacement on the back. So what we can do is to, in this fit range, we can increase this to 0.7 to something along those lines, and also decrease the source max. So something like that. So we still have some values in there, and this will help us along the way. All right. What else can we do? Let's see what's next. We can now create some noise on these lake parts. I'm gonna call it a pet. So I'm gonna do a mask expand to encompass a bit more of this area, and I'm gonna expand it quite a bit, so 55. and then I'm gonna create an heightfield noise. So heightfield noise, we keep doing the same as you can see. So heightfield noise, I'm gonna load the mask, and I'm gonna say about 38 and element size of 96. So this is fine. And now we can just do another distortion, heightfield distort by noise, and load this as a mask. And let's see, in here I believed I want to change a bit the look of this pad, so distort it quite a bit. So I'm gonna change the amplitude to 36 and the element size to about 100. And also reduce the roughness. That's the main trick. So something like that. As you can see, that helps to break the even of the pads, these lake sides. And now what we will do is I'm gonna also do a mask shrink, because later I'm gonna use this mask to scatter some rocks. So I'm gonna do a mask shrink and shrink it by, let's see, by 45. And I'm gonna copy layer, and I'm gonna change this to, let's say, mask, and destination will be river. And then we can mask clear and convert heightfield. Oops, let's remove this visualization. And before we finish this, let's create a match size. And I'm gonna scale it to fit and to 10. But I don't want those huge environments. And I'm gonna change this to min. Something along those lines. And now we can create a grid for our water. So let's create a grid and see how that pattern is going. And in this case, let's see, I used in here 300 times 0.01 because I was not sure if I was going to use the original heightfield dimensions, or I would scale it right away. So I use this in here, and I also use the scale of this heightfield, so along the Z or Y, and paste it in here, and also multiply it by 0.01, since we just use the scale of 10 in here on this match size. So let's merge this, and in this match size I also played with the value along Y, so I reduced it to minus 0.15. And let's also create a color and change this to this blue. And I'm gonna create an attribute, and I'm gonna change this to alpha, default to 1, and value to 0.7. So, and yeah, this is our setup so far. So hopefully you enjoyed this one. Maybe we can move this a bit up, something like that. And this is our heightfield, and in the next part we will create the bridge and then move on from that. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.